Hey everyone. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. Because normally what I like to do is I build a deck around a character that maybe not won't be getting much attention and kind of show people how to use it. Today is a character that was submitted by one of my locals and subscribers, Keith. He asked me to do Mina 2, and I thought that since she got a bit of support in Jetburn, that'd be pretty cool. I didn't want to build her off of water, though, because I felt like that was a little obvious. But then I ran into the issue that I couldn't decide between chaos and death which one I would prefer, so I decided to do both. And I thought I'd give you guys a bit of a showing of what I think the character can do on both of these symbols, and let you decide for yourself which one you think would do good. So, this video is going to be a little bit longer than normal, and I apologize for that, but I'll try not to ramble too much and get straight to the point, so let's get into it. Mina Ashido 2 is a 6 hand size, 27 health character with Chaos, Death, and Water. She has a static that says face down cards in your card pool do not count towards progressive difficulty, so kind of like Selkie, but she doesn't have to be committed to do it. And then she has a response: after your punch or ranged attack deals damage, your rival loses 1 health for each face-down card in your card pool. So you can kind of see that she wants to stuff her own card pool full of face-down cards, and with every successful hit, you're going to burn your opponent for more damage. And interesting thing, unlike most effects that burn your opponent, this can kill them. So if you manage to hit them with a throw or a partial attack, and you have, say, 3 or 4 cards face down in your card pool, and that extra 3 or 4 damage would kill them, they lose. So that's really, really cool. So let's get into kind of starting with the Chaos build here. I really like Double Trouble in her, because it's an Echo attack, it's stun 1, so it means that your attacks will hopefully have an easier time hitting, and it's really good for cycling cards out of your hand. You discard a card, draw a card. Simple. It's also an Echo, so that means you can play it a second time if you have momentum, and then after it resolves the second time, it flips itself face down, no longer counting towards progressive difficulty. And since your opponent's usually going to want to be blocking your ranged and punch attacks, this has neither of those keywords. Your opponent might be more inclined to just let this go, and you could get away with some free damage, at least 5 maybe, and that could really help tip the scales of the math in your favor. Then we've got Tongue Capture, which is Froppy's new throw. It is a ranged throw, which is cool. You don't see a lot of those, but that means also that when this deals damage, if it wasn't blocked with an effect that says this throw deals no damage, you're gonna guarantee trigger the burn on Mina 2. So you could throw this at the end of a string when you have 3, 4, 5 face-down cards in your card pool, and guarantee that extra burn damage. And it says, if as an enhance, if you have drawn a card during this enhanced step, your next attack gets 2 speed and 2 damage. Not a lot we can do to draw, at least in this build, that I could see off the Chaos symbol. This is mainly in here to just guarantee, as a 2 mid-4 throw, that you're going to be getting some damage on, and then you're automatically triggering your character's damage. Then she's got Assault Dust, which is a really good 4 diff. It's a 5 high for 5 range attack that flips itself after it resolves. That's all it does. That's all it needs to do. Solid opener, solid mid attack for the mid turn, where you just play it. Block it or not, it's going to flip, and it's a 5 high 5, so it's already kind of difficult to deal with. Very well statted. And this is one of the reasons I like the Chaos build, is Nejire Wave. It is a ranged 4 mid 4, not great, but as a response, you discard a momentum after you play it as an attack. Your rival commits 3 foundations. Instant stun 3. It is a really good opener, or maybe after you've done a Double Trouble or an Assault Dust, just to force your opponent to commit more resources so that your extra attacks further down the line will hit more likely. And then as an enhance, it gets plus 2 damage for each attack your rivals block this turn. So if you do get a string going, and they're blocking your ranged and punch attacks so that they don't take damage, this could be a pretty good closing card, because as a 4 mid 4, 6, 8, 10, maybe, you can also discard a card, so it's a stun 3. So that could be a pretty good closer, if need be. I also really love this one, Acid Chop. It's a 4/4 flash, which means no enhanced step. You play it, you do your responses when an attack is played, and then you go straight to the block step. And as a response, after you play this attack, both players add the top card of their deck to their card pool face down. So it clogs your opponent's card pool, and it adds more to the burn damage that you're able to do if this attack or any subsequent attacks hit. So staple 4 of in her, in any version of her I would build, just because it helps get you going, and it helps continue your string by making your attacks harder to block. And then Cheerful Uppercut, mainly for defense, because when you add the card face down, when you block with it, for you, it doesn't count towards progressive. But for your opponent, it can really break up their turn pretty well. And for our foundations on the Chaos build, I've got 2 weapon of choice here, simply for the Enhanced Commit, if your rival has lost health this turn, draw a card. We don't have any weapons to deal with its Tenacious Enhance, but this could really help you continue your string. It could trigger the Enhance on Tongue Capture, and it can just really help you push forward. We've got Elasticity, as we've seen in other builds. It's really good for the anti-stun, but also really good for if your opponent blocks an attack and you see that they're either committing out or they have no more cards in their hand, or it's just really unlikely that you think they're going to block your next attack. Flip this card after they block, your next attack is 3 damage. Stack that onto your Tongue Capture throw, that's really, really good. Stack it onto an Acid Chop where they get an additional card into their card pool, that's now a 4/7 that they have to worry about. Or on defense, if you block, you can give your opponent's next attack -3 damage. I'd really stick more for the offense on this card, but it is helpful. And then we have number 5 Pro Hero, which is really fun in Mina, and the main reason I wanted to build this deck off of Chaos or Death, because as a response, flip, after this attack resolves, flip it. Any attack you play can then not count towards progressive difficulty after it resolves. So after it does damage, you can response flip this card, and then you could response, if I'm reading correctly, you can response trigger Mina after your attack deals damage to burn them for 1. But even if you don't get that extra 1 on the burn, it still takes another card out of your progressive, so you don't have to worry about it, and you can keep going with your string. 4 Breakdancing, obviously. It's a breaker 1, which is fun, but once per turn, add the top card of your deck to your card pool face down. This attack is +2 or -2 speed. So just free speed on your attacks, free extra burn whenever your stuff lands, or free -2 speed, and face down cards don't count towards progressive on either turn, really. So just free -2 speed, and then Student Enhance, flip, discard 1 face down card from your card pool. I don't really see why you would do that for this specific deck, but I mean, it's there, I guess, if you need it. I've got 2 Nice Try. It's just a good card that you can commit on your turn. Then response, after your rival's combat phase begins, ready this foundation, and then you can commit it again on your rival's turn for -2 speed on any attack. It's also a low block. It's just an overall really good card. Excuse me. Then we've got Nejire Chain of the Big 3 for some damage pump and to help us get out of deadlock with Enhanced Destroy 1 Foundation. This attack gets +1 damage, and if it's blocked, gain a health. So if your opponent's really trying to make sure that you don't hit them, you can keep gaining health and kind of keep your pressure on offensively and defensively. We've got Broken Psyche, which is an amazingly good defensive card. You flip it, discard a momentum, change this attack's damage to 2. So your opponent's big bomb is now a tiny poke. Really, really good, really, really helpful. Just an awesome defensive piece. We've got Basic Training for a little bit of extra damage. Response once per turn after you play an attack, it gets +1 damage. And then if your opponent builds into deadlock, after an attack is played, response, this attack gets +1 speed, playable while committed, and not only playable once per turn. So if you have multiple copies of this, and you've already used the damage, you can commit them to pass your check, and then if your opponent's in deadlock, each one can give you additional speed to make sure that those attacks connect. Speaking of speed, to make sure your attacks connect, we've got 3 easily excited here. Responds once per turn after an attack is played, it gets +1 speed, and gains taunt if it does not already have it, which you don't really need taunt. It's mainly here for the 1 speed and the 2 high block. We've got Feelin' Cute. You can enhance destroy 1 foundation, your attack is +1 speed, trying to make sure your attacks connect. We've got Chivalrous Competitor, which is flip protection. Before one of your foundations would be destroyed or flipped by your rival's non-character effect, flip this foundation instead. But it's mainly here for the flip both players draw a card. This helps continue your strings, it can trigger the enhance on tongue capture, and really just help you try to close out your turn by drawing more attacks. We've got Graceful Maneuvers. You're obviously wanting to stuff your card pool with breakdancing, and you've got blocks, you've got Cheerful Uppercut, so commit for -2 speed on an attack, and an additional -1 speed for each card in your card pool can really make sure that you survive a kill turn. Then we've got Maul Day, which is a card you don't see a lot of, which I really like. As a response, add this card to your card pool face up or face down. After you check an attack, add it to your hand. So you can add this card to your card pool face down from your stage after checking attack to pick up an attack, and then Maul Day, while face down, doesn't count towards progressive difficulty. So it nets you another attack, even though you're technically losing a foundation, it won't count towards the progressive to play that attack. And then as a Deadlock Enhance once per turn, you can add the top card of your deck to your Momentum. Kind of alright, but outside of Double Trouble and maybe a couple foundations and Cheerful Uppercut, I don't see... well, Nejire Wave. We don't use a lot of momentum for this deck, so it's not necessary. It's mainly more for the pick up and attack effect. Then, of course, we've got Struggling with Studies. Enhance flip if this is your rival's 3rd or greater attack this combat phase. Add a card from your card pool to your hand. You can pick up blocks like Cheerful Uppercut. You can pick up mainly any block and survive by blocking again. Or if you know that next attack isn't going to kill you, and you blocked with something like a Cheerful Uppercut or another attack, you can just pick up an attack and keep it for the next turn. And then response before you add one of your foundations would be flipped due to a rival effect. Flip this card instead. It's another one of those protections like Chivalrous Competitor, just doesn't protect against destruction. And lastly, we have Irrefutable Force of Nature, which can seal your rival's earth, fire, or water foundations or assets by committing, or as an enhance you can remove it to seal one asset or foundation regardless of symbol. And that's pretty much the basics of the Chaos deck. I'm sure there are some things I could do differently. As I'm breaking it down with you guys, I'm thinking of maybe changing up the numbers on this and testing it out, but this is just kind of the basics. So now we're going to move on to the Death build. You're going to see a lot of the same cards because a lot of the stuff shares Chaos and Death. But I think I like what I did with this build a little bit different. It went for a bit of a more foundation control. So as you can see with the attacks, we have 4 Salt Dust. Obviously you're going to want 4 of this. It's a really good card. And then we start going into weird stuff like Red Gauntlet. It is a Punch, Fury, Flash. So it's a 3-low 4 with response destroy 1 foundation. After this attack deals damage, your rival destroys 2 face-down foundations. So this is really, really cool, because if your opponent has anything that flips for cost or flips for effects, you can get rid of 2 of their foundations just by letting this attack deal damage. Which, if it deals damage, you're also burning them for more health. It is a low zone and a flash, so they don't have any enhanced steps that they can play for this card. And then it's good Deadlock hate. Deadlock response, if this attack is completely blocked, you get to destroy 3 of your rival foundations. So if they don't go for the you destroy 1, they destroy 2 face downs and lose health because of Mina, you get to choose 3 of their foundations to destroy if they're in Deadlock, which will likely get them out of Deadlock, but it's still a pretty solid move. 4 Acid Chops, because it's a flash, it stuffs both card pools with a face-down card, and really can help stuff like Red Gauntlet connect a little bit easier. Then we've got Acid Corrosion Breach. This is her Ultra from Crimson Rampage? Crimson Rampage. It is a 3 low 6, it is a 2 check, and that's where the trickiness of this card kind of comes in. As an enhance, you can add 1 momentum to your card pool face down. This attack gets 2 speed and 2 damage, so instead of a 3 low for 6, it becomes a 5 low for 8, which is pretty good, especially when you consider its second effect. Enhance, add the top card of your deck to your card pool face down. Look at all the face down cards in your card pool, and you may add one of them to your hand. So if you've added a momentum face down, and that momentum was an attack, you can then add the top card of your deck to your card pool face down, and then pick up that attack after giving this attack 2 speed and 2 damage. So you can, if any of your cards have flipped, like Assault Dust, or you can see we have number 5 Pro Hero. If you flipped any cards in your card pool, you can pick them back up and reuse them, which could extend your turn even farther. So I really like Acid Corrosion Breach. I'm just not sure with the Chaos build if I had enough that I wanted to do the recycling for on that. Cheerful Uppercut, obviously one of your defensive staples, really, really good. Then I threw in Merciless Rush. This one was a little weird. It's another use for Momentum as EX, which makes this attack harder to block, which could then lead to you burning for more damage. Excuse me. But it also says if your printed hand size is less than your rivals, this attack gets -1 difficulty. Since we're a 6-hander, you're probably not going to be doing that unless you're playing against a 7-hander, obviously. It is a 4 high 5, and it has Enhance. If this attack is completely blocked, your rival destroys a foundation. Sorry, hit my mouse. So, if they don't take the extra damage from Mina, they're they're losing one of their foundations, which can, again, push forward and really put you more on that offensive pressure. We've got League of Villains here for if your rival plays an ability on a committed foundation, they lose a health. As Death, we're really wanting to burn them as much as possible. Really try to put that kind of pressure on and make them second guess what they're doing at any given point. And then for Evil Gaze. So not only is this card a breaker, but Enhance, lose 2 health, this attack gets +2 or -2 speed, and if this attack is blocked, you destroy 1 rival foundation, and then remove this card from the game. So on offense, you make your cards harder to block, which could increase the chance that you're going to burn them for more damage. Or on defense, you get to make something easier to block, and then you get to target destroy one of their good foundations, like that's face up, or whatever you think you're going to have to worry about. And then as a Deadlock Enhance, you get to destroy just 1 rival foundation and remove this card. It's really, really good, and I think that it really puts a lot of pressure on the opponent's stage with the Death build. And then going into the foundations, got Weapon of Choice again. For the drawing, again, we're not running any weapons, so it's mainly just here to draw you the cards. I've got 2 Always Cool. This is mainly going to be for the response. After an attack is played, its damage cannot be modified. That's really good for just limiting what your opponent can do to you on their turn. I don't really see you adding it to your card pool to build the top 2 cards of your deck, unless you just absolutely need 2 more foundations for some reason. But again, it's more there for the low block and the defensive response. We've upped number 5 Pro Hero to 4 for this build because of Acid Corrosion Breach, so that you can flip an attack, play Corrosion Breach, use Corrosion Breach's effect, pick up your attack, play it again, and if you have multiple copies of number 5 Pro Hero and more than 1 Corrosion Breach, you can actually loop the Corrosion Breaches as many times as you want, or at least as many times as you have number 5 Pro Hero. If you had any way to unflip it during the turn, that would obviously probably change how many Corrosion Breaches you run, but it would also be pretty funny. And then Deadlock Form, remove, discard up to 5 cards from your card pool. I can only really seeing that if your opponent's in Deadlock and you have 3 attacks in hand and maybe like a couple face-up cards in your card pool, just to get them out so you can keep on with your attacks. But it's mainly there for the response. For Breakdancing, we've already gone over that. I've got 2 Defying Fate. This is in there because I was having trouble finding low blocks that weren't attacks, as you'll see some of the other cards I've put in here. But it also commits for -2 speed, which is really good, and if you lose health due to a rival effect, you can add it to your momentum if you need it. but it's mainly there for the -2 speed. We got red right's the coolest. Obviously, if you can make sure that your opponent's not going to block an attack, you can just stack damage on stuff, and it's a low block. I've got the odd confession here, just because first enhance once per turn during your attack, you can make your rival discard a card and draw a card, and if the discarded card was not an attack, they lose a health. It's just an interesting way to try to keep your opponent guessing. Maybe you get a good block out of their hand, and they pick up a worse block, and maybe they lose a health, just to help your math along a little bit more. If I was looking to things to cut, I'd probably cut it, but it is kind of just this fun little side game you can play. I've got 2 in control. Again, I was having trouble finding low blocks, but you can flip it for +2 or -2 speed, and you can response flip after your rival makes a check to play or block with a throw attack. That check gets -2. Now, failing the check will not end the combat phase, but if your opponent blocks with a throw or tries to just throw you to death, it could make it so that they have a little bit more trouble with that. Graceful Maneuvers, obviously really good defensive piece in Mina. Malday, also there to just pick up your attacks, so you can keep going, and with your flash attacks, you can pick up a flash, and then your opponent might not be able to deal with it, so that's really fun. Struggling with Studies, obviously to pick up cards on defense. Surviving the Final, it's a good 0 diff that once per turn this attack is -1 speed. Good for trying to stay alive and block things. Apathetic, you can target flip a rival foundation by flipping this card, and that can also give them more face-down foundations for cards like Red Gauntlet, where you could destroy one of your foundations, like your Apathetic that's been flipped, and force them to destroy 2 of theirs. And then finally, Keen Observation. Really good spam, 2 high block, and response flip after your rival loses health due to an effect, your rival loses 1 health. And this effect cannot reduce your rival below 1 health, but it triggers off of Mina, it triggers off of Confession. It's just really there to just keep that pressure on and make them go lower and lower, faster and faster. But you can see I've got a bit of a sideboard here, and it's mainly just attacks I was having trouble either trying to find space for, or just things I might do differently if I wanted to change my attack lineup up. I'm actually really a fan of Maneuvering Laser in Mina, because it's a 3 mid-4, yeah, that's fine. It's EX2, so another use for your momentum, and makes this attack harder to block so that you can guarantee extra damage. But you can add a card from your stage to your card pool, and this attack gets 1 speed and 2 damage, so it becomes a 4 mid-6, and if you add a face-down card, like Apathetic or Keen Observation, that's more damage you do each time your attack deals damage, and it won't count towards your progressive difficulty, so you don't have to worry about that. And then Enhance, if it's not blocked, discard your rival's entire momentum. So, really it makes your opponent want to block this, and possibly waste a block out of their hand when they could be blocking something that you could throw that's bigger. But again, if it's not blocked, discard their entire momentum. Then we've got Exploding Pride, which is in a similar vein. It's a 4-low-3, so it's an off zone, but Enhance, your rival loses 1 health for each card in their momentum. This effect cannot reduce your rival below 1 health. So that's another trigger for Keen Observation. Is also more burn damage to mess with their math if they think they can survive a turn and they have 2 or 3 momentum. This can cut them by the number of momentum they have, and maybe they weren't planning for that. And if this attack is blocked, as opposed to Maneuvering Lasers not blocked, discard all cards from your rival's momentum. So it's either they lose the health for every card in their momentum, and then block this to lose all their momentum, or they lose 1 health for every card in their momentum, take the 3 damage, and then take damage from Mina. So it really puts them in a tough situation. Again, I was kind of not entirely sure what I wanted to do. I think Death definitely has more interesting things you can do with your attack lineup than Chaos or Water, which feel a little bit more standard, so these were just kind of things I threw in there as additional options that could be weighed. And if I wasn't doing Acid Corrosion Breach, I would definitely try to go for the Gale Force Punch. It's a 6 mid-6, punch ranged, but it is a 2 check and a 6 diff, so it is pretty hefty. but you can lose 3 health. Your next Fury or Punch attack gets 5 damage. So a 6 mid-6 is already going to be kind of tough to block, especially if they check bad. But then if you lose 3 health, your next attack gets 5 extra damage. So if you're throwing this, heaven forbid, mid-string, if you've been able to turn your other attacks face down, like maybe you've opened 2 or 3 Assault Dusts, throw this on a 6, your next attack gets 5 damage. If they've been blocking, they're probably not going to be able to do anything about that, and you could turn like Acid Chop into a 4 high 9, or turn Red Gauntlet into a 3 low 9 that has Flash that your opponent's not going to be able to deal with. And then if you have fewer foundations than your rival, you can destroy one rival foundation. You get to choose, so you can pick their best defensive foundation to get rid of and just make it harder for them to block anything. Again, I'd probably only run this if I wasn't running the Acid Corrosion Breaches, just because you don't want to run too many 2 checks in your deck, unless you specifically build around that. But I do think it is worth the honorable mention. And then Float Combo. I tried to keep my difficulty curve as low as possible. I know I've got 5 diffs in Acid Corrosion Breach, Cheerful Uppercut, and Merciless Rush, but Merciless Rush could be a 4 diff if for some reason you're facing a 7-hander. But Float Combo is pretty cool. You probably wouldn't be comboing very much by switching its speed and damage, but it does say if it's completely blocked, it still deals 1 damage, which means it's always going to trigger Mina 2's response. So you could also run this also in the Chaos build, if you really wanted to trigger that with this Float Combo and Tongue Capture. So if you ran Chaos and you really wanted to focus on the range package, maybe going more like the Todoroki package. I tried to stay away from a lot of that because, well, I don't own Frigid Heat Waves, so I try to, when I'm building, think more for what I'm capable of doing at any given moment. But you definitely could do this so that you could trigger your ability as much as possible on Chaos. But again, with the 5 diff, I didn't want to throw too many 5 diffs in here, or like Gale Force Punch is a 6 diff. So, yeah. So you've got your Chaos deck, which is mostly your ranged kind of deal with it package, with this, the exception of Double Trouble, which if you wanted to, you could change these into float combos, and I think you'd be pretty alright for it, because then that would be your only other offensive 5 diff unless you threw a Cheerful Uppercut for some reason. So if you wanted to switch the Double Trouble out for the float combo, I could definitely see that. But sticking more with the ranged package and trying to focus on boosting your speed, and then with the death package focusing, you've got a bit of mix here of punches and ranged, but more focusing on controlling your opponent's stage. This is just the 2 ways I could see building these. Sorry, Keith, if I gave you more options and more answers than you would have liked as opposed to a straightforward build, but this is what happens when you get my gears going. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think Mina 2 has a serious shot now that she's got a little bit more of a boost? And now that certain bans have happened to maybe make it a little bit easier to play? Or do you think she's still kind of dead in the water? I personally think she has a lot of potential. I really like Mina as a character from the show, and I really like the kind of playing with progressive difficulty aspect. Whenever me or some of my other players at my local group do this, we just say, what's progressive difficulty? And it's kind of fun to deal with. So, yeah, just let me know what you guys think, and if you've got ideas for a character you want to see me take a crack at. I've got a couple more lesser knowns waiting in the wings, but I wanted to get this out for Keith, since he asked so nicely on one of my videos to hear my thoughts on her. So just let me know down below. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe if you want to see more deck profiles. I am trying to do 2 of these a week, but that may slow down with the holidays based on just how busy I'm going to be. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.